What's up, Internet? It's Brian from Outsider Reviews here. This week we are carrying on our Cadillac extravaganza. We have for you the 2024 Cadillac XT5. So buckle up, let's get right into it. Welcome to Outsider Reviews. I'm Brian. Behind the camera this week is Pat. We're just a couple military vets who used to play with Hot Wheels as kids. Now we're doing it for real. This week for you, the 2024 Cadillac XT5. This is the sport trim, which is the top trim. And right off the bat, you can see off the front end here, pretty sporty looking. I love the front end. You got that blacked out grille in behind the Cadillac logo, the chrome inserts, the highlights. I think it looks phenomenal. Sliding over to the headlights, again, everything's nice and smooth and flows nicely down the side of the car. It's great. They even put a little details into the headlights there. You see the little Cadillac logo in there. It's both in the front and the back, but headlights, everything on this thing. Headlights, taillights, all LED. They look great, bright, automatic high beams. It's awesome. I love this thing. Sliding on underneath the hood here, we have a naturally aspirated 3.6 liter V6, which will give you a 310 horsepower output along with 271 pounds-feet of torque. All of that will translate to about 3,500 pounds of towing overall. That all drives through a 9-speed transmission. Looking at our fuel economy, up in Canada, this thing will give you 12.9 in the city, 12.9 liters per 100 kilometers, 9.2 on the highway for a combined of 11.2 liters. In the US, that will give you 18 miles per gallon in the city, 26 miles per gallon on the highway, and combined 25 miles per gallon. It is a V6, so don't get your hopes too high for that one. Moving along down the side of the car, what we've got here for your top trim, 235, 55, 20 tires on rims, 20-inch rims, but you've also got Brembo brakes, right there, the nice red highlighted brakes. It looks great. Moving along down the side, we've got the monochrome badging here. Your keyless entry as per usual. Coming around to the back end here, again, a little more chrome highlights. Again, I like the look. You've got the chrome highlights for the tailpipes as well. Your badging across the back. And like I said, towing capacity here. So with the top trim, the V6 will give you 3,500 pounds of towing. The base trim of this model, the luxury model, comes with a 2-liter turbo. That'll give you about 1,000 pounds of towing. Moving along to the cargo space in the trunk. With the seats up, you're looking at 30 cubic feet. With the seats folded down, we've got 63 cubic feet, which is quite a bit of space. Looking at the seats themselves, we're looking at a standard 60-40 split. Now, let's take a look at the interior. So here we are in the back seats. As you can see, I've got lots of room. There's 39 inches here of leg room for the rear passengers. I've got plenty. There's also lots of room down below to slide your feet underneath the seats. I've got plenty of headspace here, especially with the sunroof open. Down the middle here, you got your standard armrests with your cup holders. We do have climate control for the rear passengers, which is a nice little bonus, as well as some ventilation. And then down below here, we've got a USB-A, USB-C. Couple just standard pockets in here, and there you go. Very comfortable to sit in. These are very nice seats. It's all a nice leather finish with some fine stitching. But yeah, it's very comfortable back here. Now let's get to the business end. Here we are up front and having a look around. Again, that luxurious theme continues through the front. As you can see through the doors here, fine leather stitching continues. We've still got some of those chrome highlights in through the dash and whatnot. And we've also got this carbon fiber look, kind of goes through the dash and into the doors. It's pretty nice. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the look of this vehicle on the inside. Seats themselves are very comfortable up front. It's comfortable to drive. The seat has 10-way electronic adjustments that can be made. Comes with 2 preset driver positioning. Looking at the dash here, we've got a split between our old analog and digital. Through the middle, we've got some of our digital displays, 2 analog dials on the side. What we have, your steering wheel is a 4-way electronic telescopic steering wheel. Words are hard. Carrying on down the middle, we've got, coming up to our infotainment system. This is one of the things that kind of gives me pause for this vehicle. Now, the XT5 has been on the market since about 2017 and is more or less the same generation that it was back then. So as you can see, this one comes with an 8-inch screen. So not huge, especially not compared to what's out there. Functionally, it works. I mean, there doesn't seem to be much lag. It does have its own navigation system built right in, so that's a nice feature. It's a very tiny screen compared to what's available nowadays. And the UI itself, the applications that are built right into this car are just kind of getting a little outdated compared to a lot of the other systems that we're seeing out there. So that's a little disappointing, but it is what it is, right? If we carry on down below, you see you've got your actual climate controls down here. It can be controlled through the touchscreen, but you also have separate controls here. Just to note, this looks like it's all touchscreen as well, piano black, or touch sensitive, but it actually is bezeled. You have to push and wait for that response to actually get your controls to go through. Carrying on down the middle here, we've got our sound system controls. This comes with a Bose 14 speaker sound system, and it sounds phenomenal. I've been blowing up my ears all week. Love it. We can control that here through the dial and whatnot. We've also got our drive modes controlled right next to that. And then just tucked in behind that is your phone charger. Wireless phone charger. So this comes with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And then of course in behind that there, we've just got our standard center console. We've got USB A and C plugs in there, and then our SD card for the built-in nav. All right, so let's go have some fun with this thing, see what our 3-liter engine can do.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Here we go.
There's your V6
well done.
Working hard. I love that sound.
You know what? I felt like it gets going like after the first gear. That's where it shines a little bit more.
So yeah, I do have it in sports mode right now. You got your 6 cylinders working hard to push, going through that 9-speed transmission. You're right. I think it's starts a little bit slow, but definitely catches up pretty quickly. This is a 3.6 liter V6 naturally aspirated. So, you don't have the turbo trying to force in extra air and get, your maximum combustion ratio, but it's just a good old classic fun engine. It's big, it's loud, it does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and you definitely hear the engine, but it's a nice deep rumbling. I like it. But other than that, I don't hear much, like there's not much road noise. It's fairly quiet cabin. I like it.
I found it's been pretty good this whole week I've had it. There's not a whole lot of noise coming from outside. It's great. It's well insulated. It's well put together.
Yeah. And as a passenger here, I'm pretty comfortable. And I don't feel much body roll as we take these sharper corners with acceleration. And now we're going through a little bit bumpier phase, and even though you're in sports mode, and I know the suspension tightens up on sports mode because it's adaptive dampers, and but I'm feeling pretty comfortable and not feeling every single bump.
So I have played with the different modes a little bit. You've got your 2-wheel, your 4-wheel touring, 4-wheel sports, all-wheel sports, and then the off-road, which Cadillacs don't go off-road as far as I'm concerned. So, but what we did, what is supposed to happen when you change modes here is the suspension, the dampeners are supposed to adjust slightly for each different driving mode. And me not being a professional driver, I haven't quite noticed. I know it's supposed to, you get more of a rigid suspension in a sport mode. I haven't really felt a huge difference between the modes as far as driving and as far as the noise and everything else. It's still a very smooth ride, very comfortable. Even, accelerating off the line, giving it some gas in sports mode, it still handles quite nicely. So I'm pretty impressed with those dampeners, and I feel like they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Is I shouldn't feel that big of a difference in the luxury as we're switching through the drive modes. And as far as I can tell, it's doing a good job of that.
Yeah, and I like my comfort level. I like how everything's soft and padded. I can easily rest my arms on the side. Maybe a thigh extender would be like something I'd like to see, especially for a premium vehicle like that. But otherwise, the seat's nice and supportive, and
I found them really comfortable. It's been a very comfortable vehicle to drive in. I found even adjusting the seats with the 8-way adjustments. There's a lot of options here. It's a nice, comfortable leather. Love the dual climate control for the front seats. So I've got the cooling on right now because we are in our summer months here, and it is getting warmer and warmer. But yeah, it's very comfortable. The leather's nice. I've never found it to be too hot or, you know, freezing cold or anything like that. And yeah, I definitely see what you're talking about, the thigh extender. I think that's as far as GM, you see them a little less, and some of the GMs tend to have slightly shorter seats, but it's, like I said, I've been pretty comfortable driving this thing, and I've got no real complaints about comfort.
Yeah.
I picked this up in Montreal. I drove it back to the Quebec City area. That's about 300-ish kilometers. I think about 200 miles-ish. And when I got it home, I was doing about 9.2, I believe, 9.2 per 100 kilometers. So that's pretty decent.
Because it does shut off some cylinders though, right? You can roll into 4-cylinder mode. Because I remember we drove 2 separate cars. I had a 4-cylinder engine, and he was getting better fuel economy than I was. And I was wondering how that is. And it's because it can shut off 2 cylinders when it doesn't need it and just cruise and save some gas.
So yes, a V6 running all the time on the highway when you don't necessarily need it to is going to burn a lot of gas. That was a nice option. I noticed in the touring mode, it was dropping down to 4-cylinder, and it even tell you in the dash there's a little icon there. Well, you'll see the V4 or V6 when it switches. So it's working to try to save you a little bit of money there. I mean, it's still a V6 though. Expect to pay a little bit more than the inline 4 2-liter turbo that on the base trim and the mid-range trim of this, that comes standard. That engine comes standard. So if you do like this model, but you want to save a little bit on gas, that is an option if you're looking at the lower trims. Sport trim only comes with a V6, as it's meant to be.
How's your visibility on this vehicle? Some people, I've heard some complaints about the pillars being pretty thick. I can see the A pillar a little thick, but I mean, otherwise, it doesn't look too bad.
I like the visibility in this. Looking around from the driver position, again, I'm about 5'11". I've got decent visibility out. The only area where I've kind of noticed it's a little bit of an issue for me, even after playing with the adjustments for the seat and everything to try to get it just right. The front end on this thing, where the headlights are, it's a little bit rounded, it's a little bit more smooth, and I do like the look of it from the outside. It's just when you're sitting behind the wheel, it's a little harder to see the corners, the front corners of the vehicle. The first couple days as I was driving, I was definitely a little more hesitant. I think I was probably taking my corners a little bit wider than I needed to, just to make sure I wasn't going to bang up this beautiful car that does not belong to me. But
all right, so if I'm shopping around, what are my options here?
Well, there's some competition out there, and seeing as I'm a terrible multitasker, let me pull over and I'll tell you all about it. So the big number everybody wants to know is the price tag. What does this thing go for? So like I said earlier, there are 3 trims. Starts at the luxury, premium luxury, and then this model being the top trim, the sport model. So at the luxury end, you're looking at 54,000 Canadian or about 45 US. The sport trim starts at 64,000 Canadian or about 54 US. And then the fully loaded sport, which we have here, comes in at 78,000 Canadian. You're looking at about 65,000 US to take this thing home. So where does this bad boy sit next to its competitors? Well, let's talk about that. One competitor that definitely stood out to me that popped up quite a bit was the Lexus RX, probably in the 360 line. There, what you're gonna get is, depending on the options that you play with as far as engine and everything, you might get a little more power. It's gonna be a little more pricey. It's definitely a lot smaller than this, so you're gonna lose a lot of cargo space there. If you're looking at Audi, the Q5 is probably your best bet. It's decent in the power department, roughly priced the same as this bad boy. a little bit smaller as well. So, I mean, pros and cons there. Probably the two closest that if you want to stay close to home here in the North American market, Lincoln. They've got two competitors for this one. The Nautilus, which is a little bit bigger, definitely more cargo space, definitely more expensive, but the interior, a bit of a refresh, a little more luxurious, depending on your opinion on that. And then if you want to spend a little less money, then the Lincoln Corsair is also a good competitor with this baby. It's a little bit smaller, it's a little bit cheaper. Again, if you play with the options on the power there, you might come into the comparable range. One thing I can say about the XT5 Sport is in this class of vehicle, in this size of an SUV, you're not going to find too many that still put a V6 under the hood. And I can kind of understand why, with the way gas prices are, but there's just something about that engine that speaks to me. I don't know what it is, but the good old-fashioned dead dinosaur flowing through this thing's veins just makes it a little more fun than just the traditional or some of the newer inline four, some of the 2-liter engines. May not get you the best numbers, may not get you the best mileage, but I've enjoyed it thus far, so I can't complain too much about it. So here we are. Final thoughts on the Cadillac XT5 for the 2024 year. Where does it stand? Where do I stand with it? I've got a lot of good things to say about this thing, and I really do. And I personally enjoyed driving it. I had tons of fun driving it. I think it handles pretty nicely. I think the giant engine underneath the hood that puts out tons of power is a really fun engine to drive with. It goes when you give it gas. That is a con, of course, that it takes a lot of gas. It's a big engine. The interior, I mean, if this car in and of itself was not being compared to the world full of competitors that is out there, is a very nice car. The interior, for what it is nice. It's just a lot of things on this vehicle, because it hasn't had a refresh in the last, or a full refresh, I should say, in the last 7 years, means it's falling a little behind some of its competitors. Basically, all the competitors that I mentioned earlier in the last 5 years have put some major updates into the interior. Most of them are considered a little more luxurious than this thing was. Pretty much all of them have bigger infotainment screens, better touchscreen systems. A lot of companies are moving towards the Google integrated UI. These are all things to consider for me. It's great to drive, it's fun to drive, but it's falling a little behind. So one thing we did do, because this vehicle hasn't had a refresh, we reached out to our GM rep. We asked, is it going to be in production next year? Is it getting a refresh next year? Those kinds of things. The answer was it will be available in North America next year, the 2025 model. It'll basically be the same thing you have here. And to me, that's a little disappointing because we know the XT4, this thing's little brother, did get a refresh for this year. Check out our video on it. It's great. I think that vehicle's phenomenal. And it's just, to me, when you get a lot of the things in that car, you find them in this car, a little bit cheaper. I hesitate, right? Again, great to drive, fun to drive. I love driving this thing. If you've had one in the last 5-6 years, we want to know what you think about it. If you've test driven one, if you're kind of looking at some of the Cadillacs or some of the competitors out there, leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. I love to hear from you because honestly, this thing's great, in my opinion. So there you have it. Cadillac XT5 for 2024. Let us know what you think of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks a lot for watching. We will catch you next week.